Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training. Today I am going to look at a little update that's just come out for Wan2GP, so it goes with my other Wan2GP videos. In my first couple of videos about Wan2GP, I said one of the things it was really missing was a batch feature, so I wouldn't have to load each clip individually. Now it's got one. Plus another good thing, it can actually make ProRes files now, as opposed to making MP4s. Makes MP4s as well, but ProRes is better for editing. Now again, I'm using Wan2GP through Pinocchio. So I've got Pinocchio up here and I want to update it. So what you've got to do is come over here to where it says update, click on it and let it get on with it. If there's nothing there, it won't do anything. And there we are, it says disconnected. So it did nothing on mine because I literally updated it yesterday. But that's how you update it. Now, just start as normal. Obviously you have to wait for the thing to actually pop up and we're in. Now the first thing you might notice compared to my previous video is this process whole video tab is now called Media Flow. Don't know why they changed the name, probably thought it was better. I preferred the old one. But anyway, Media Flow is where you come for outpainting and all the other kinds of stuff I've been talking about. And you'll notice here we have one item or batch. There's also been an option here to do images as well as video. Obviously I'm mainly doing video, but if you wanted to, you could stick that in there and do various types of upscaling and so on with images, but I'm sticking with video. But the main thing there is batch. How do you use the batch option? Well, it's pretty much the same as before. You set all these different options up. So like, for example, I would set it to be 540, 16:9 for my outpainting because I'm feeding it with standard definition. I'd pop that up there. Set up whatever sliding window I would want. And then what you've got to do is just put the path for your video in there. So go to Windows Explorer, find whatever it is that you want to use, and then just take that and copy it and paste it in here. If you leave this blank, it'll just make up a series of clips with new names and stuff on the end as before. You've got to give your batch a name. So if you try and set this going, it'll come up and say, no, you need to give it a name. So give it a name. And then say start processing and then it'll get on with it. Now you'll notice here I'm getting a lot of failures. And normally that would just straight work. It failed for me because of the other update that I mentioned, which is all to do with the kind of files that you can output. So if you go to configuration and then outputs, you can see here where we didn't used to have an option. We now have the option of doing MP4s, MKVs and MOV files. Now, I liked to do MOV files. The reason I want to do this is that I am going to take this stuff and then I am going to stick it into an editing program and tweak it a bit. If I didn't want to do that, if all I wanted to do was take a video, change it, and then watch it, I'd leave it as an MP4 file, which is the default. Now, if you're doing an MP4 file, you have a whole variety of different codecs here. The default was just doing a regular X264 8-bit file, but you could do others, including lossless H.264. Now you think lossless would be very good because you're not losing any quality. The only problem I get with making MP4s and lossless is that some editing programs don't really get on with them. When I managed to load it up into Resolve, but even then it was a bit sticky. When I loaded them into Edius, they worked, but again they were a bit sticky, but the thumbnails didn't work at all. A lot of things don't like lossless. And if I'm going to edit it, I want to lose as little information as possible, because the thing about H.264, I know it says X264, but X264 is a particular encoder that makes H.264. But the thing about H.264 is it loses a lot of information. It's great for being able to watch stuff, but it's not so good for editing. But now you can do something else. I choose MOV, and then from this list I choose ProRes. Now out of these things, the two things I would choose would be either ProRes or DNxHR. DNxHR is the Avid format, nothing wrong with that at all. It's just ProRes is kind of the standard that just about everybody uses. They'll do roughly the same quality. And with DNxHR, I do have problems sometimes loading them up into some programs. For example, Edius Pro doesn't load DNxHR MOV files, but it will load ProRes files. Pretty much everything loads ProRes files, so I go for ProRes. Now, having chosen that, it's going to make a ProRes file. The sound really ought to be uncompressed sound. So if you come down to the audio codec here, actually we don't have an option for uncompressed. So I go for very high quality. Again, don't go for this lossless thing because like it says, some programs might not get on with it. That's what the compatibility thing was. Love it if they shoved uncompressed in here, but it's not there yet. And this thing here, audio codec for standalone files that says WAV, that won't do any good because we're making a MOV file. Now the rest of this stuff I leave as it is. So literally it's MOV, ProRes, come down to the bottom and save. Don't forget to save it. A number of times when I was first using this, I'd come in here, change these things, pop back to media flow, and I hadn't saved it, so it was still making MP4 files. Now it's going to make MOV files. That should apply to anything you do in the media flow here. So that's great. Outpainting, I've added in colorization. I might do another video about that, but I can colorize stuff now, and it's very good actually, the colorization this can do. Any of this stuff will now make MOV files, which is great for editing. Obviously it makes bigger files because they're less compressed. That's the whole point of them. So you need space for it, but it makes MOV files, which I like. Now, if you're doing one video at a time, so let's go to one item, I would get my clip, like that one, copy as path, paste it, get rid of the quotation marks. Now, if I try and run that saying I'm going to make a MOV file, it will say, sorry, doesn't work. Because you're starting with an MP4 file, it's going to make an MP4 file. So what you have to do is to take that, shove it in here and change it to MOV. And then start processing and it's off. As you can see there, it's now loading the models. It'll do this thing, outpainting, whatever. Oop, I've ended up on detailer. I meant to be on outpainter. But that's great. You can now make ProRes MOV files. Now I'm going to stop that because I don't really need to do this video anyway. So I'm going to press stop. One thing I have noticed about stop actually, which is very good, is if I feed it with a half-an-hour file and tell it to colorize it or upscale it or outpaint it or something like that, if I stop it, it saves everything up to that point. So sometimes it won't stop immediately, just like here it hasn't stopped immediately because it's just saving the bit that it's been doing. But that's good. If I was in Topaz and I was upscaling something and I'm making a ProRes file and I stop it, I'll lose everything. With this, it will save it up to the point that you've done, which I really like because some of this stuff takes hours and hours and hours and you suddenly think, I need to use the PC for something. You stop it, saves it up to that point, and then you can start again just by putting in a new start point when you load the thing up again. So that's nice. Anyway, that's just an aside. But yeah, that's how you use MOV files. You just got to put MOV on the end, then it will work. Now, when it comes to batch files, this is where, of course, I'm going to make lots of files, so I can't put an individual file name here in the output path. So what I do is I copy that and then paste it. So this will take all of the shots in that folder and then remake them to shots in this folder, which happens to be the same thing, but of course I could just make it somewhere else. So, but this still won't work because I'm putting in MP4s and making MOVs. What you got to do to actually get this to work is just to put in a backsplash and then go star.mp4. So it's saying basically in that folder, take all the MP4 files and then go /star.mov. So it said take all the MP4 files in that directory and make them MOV files in that directory. And now you've got that set up, you press start and you'll notice it gets on and does it, goes through one at a time and creates a whole bunch of MOV files from my MP4 files. But that's great. Two very useful things, being able to do batches and being able to make ProRes MOV files. Of course, there have been some other changes in here. You do have on the media generator tab, they've added in some new models here, particularly on this Wan2 model here, they've added in this Bernini thing. And I haven't really talked about what you do on the media generator tab at the moment. I've been mainly playing around with this and doing widescreen videos and so on. Another thing I've noticed on doing some widescreen stuff, if I feed it with a file, say maybe a 40-minute file, it'll do most of it. And then sometimes in the middle, I find the odd scene which it hasn't done properly. It's not 4x3'd. I even found sometimes when it just missed out scenes. Don't know why, but I've still found the best way to outpaint a video if I want to do a whole thing would be just to let it do the whole thing and whack it on the timeline, find out the bits that didn't work and then just do those individually. So again, not perfect, but on the other hand, pretty flipping magic the way that it can just take video and add stuff on the edges. Another little thing you might find interesting is I've got two systems here, both with NVIDIA cards. Now one's got a 5060 Ti in it and the other's got a 3060. And I was trying to compare the performance. Obviously the 5060 does quite a lot better than the 3060 because it's more up to date and it's got more RAM, and RAM being one of the biggest things that will help you using AI stuff. I reckoned it was probably about 1.5 times faster at doing some things than the 3060. which is quite an improvement. It still means that colorizing 25 minutes of an old TV program is an overnight job, but it's an overnight job that might be finished by the end of the night on my 5060 Ti as opposed to my 3060. I also did try it on a 4090, which has got 24 gig of RAM, and it was considerably faster. Unfortunately, it just costs a lot more money. Anyway, I hope you found that little video useful. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of thing, and I'll see you next time.